The grandfather clock in the Wellington estate chimed softly, echoing down the marble hallway like a tired sigh. Benjamin Wellington moved through the darkness in his navy silk robe, the familiar sound of his bare feet brushing the cold mahogany floors grounding him more than the thought of tea ever could. It was nearly 1 a.m., and sleep had once again eluded him. The publishing empire he had built over 2 decades was fraying at the edges. That evening, his star author had officially signed with a rival house, and the press was already speculating on the fall of Wellington House. Benjamin, once a literary tastemaker, now stood in the hollow quiet of his kitchen, wondering when everything had begun to slip away. As he reached for the kettle, a faint scratching noise drew his attention toward the small breakfast nook tucked beside the window. There, bathed in the soft yellow halo of a vintage desk lamp, sat Charlotte Fairweather, his housekeeper. Her uniform, a crisp blue with white trim, still clung to her form despite the hour. But what truly caught Benjamin's eye wasn't her presence, it was the flurry of handwritten pages surrounding her, scattered across the table like fallen leaves. She was so absorbed in her work that she hadn't noticed him. Her hand glided across the cream-colored paper in long, graceful lines. Beside her sat a cracked leather-bound book, Mary's Anecdotes, a rare collection Benjamin hadn't seen since his grandfather's library was boxed away after his death. He didn't speak at first. Instead, he watched. Charlotte's brow furrowed in quiet concentration, her lips parted just slightly as if silently narrating the words as they formed. There was a rhythm to her, a deliberate cadence in the way she wrote, paused, and then referenced the worn book before continuing. It wasn't the absent-minded scribble of someone with idle dreams. It was craft. Purpose. Intention. "Miss Fairweather," Benjamin finally said, keeping his voice low, more curious than accusatory. Charlotte jolted upright, her pen slipping from her fingers. The color drained from her cheeks as she scrambled to gather the pages. "Mr. Wellington, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to use the kitchen for personal things. I just thought I'd finish a few lines and clean up before morning." He raised a hand to stop her. "Please. Don't apologize. I didn't mean to intrude." He stepped closer, drawn not just by curiosity but by something deeper he couldn't name yet. "Is that my grandfather's book?" Charlotte hesitated, unsure whether she'd crossed a line. "Yes, sir. I found it while dusting the east shelves. I hope it wasn't out of place." The stories inside, they were more than just historical sketches. They felt alive. "I couldn't help myself." Benjamin lowered himself into the chair opposite her, ignoring the quiet ache in his shoulders that had been there since his meeting with the board that afternoon. He reached gently for one of the pages she had dropped, scanning the neatly inked handwriting. The prose was careful, yet fluid, peppered with precise observations and vivid descriptions. More surprising than the quality, however, was the voice, intimate, observant, quietly powerful. "What are you writing?" he asked, setting the page down with reverence. Charlotte clasped her hands together tightly, as if afraid the truth would somehow offend him. "Stories. Just stories. Inspired by people I've met, mostly those others don't see. I know it's silly. I didn't even finish college." Benjamin shook his head. "No, it's not silly. It's the opposite. Who's Maria Santos?" He lifted another page. Charlotte's eyes softened. "She cleans offices at night. Most people don't even notice she's there. But she's observant. She remembers every coffee mug, every framed photo, every quote taped to a monitor. She pieces together lives from those fragments. She says she can tell when someone's having a bad week before they even know it themselves." He read the short piece in silence, his eyes following the paragraphs like a man walking an old familiar path but seeing it freshly in spring. When he looked up, something had shifted in his face. "This is better than most of what crossed my desk this week." Charlotte let out a disbelieving breath, almost a laugh. "You're being kind." "I'm being honest," Benjamin said, now fully alert, the haze of his fatigue momentarily forgotten. "You have a gift. Not just with words, but with empathy. You write with a kind of clarity that most MFA graduates can't fake." Charlotte glanced away. "I used to write. In another life, I suppose. I was accepted into a program once. The Greywood Fellowship. But I never went." Benjamin paused. "That fellowship was legendary, a place for rising literary voices." "Why not?" Her voice lowered. "A professor I trusted stole my work. He published it under his name. When I confronted him, he said I should be flattered that someone thought my writing was worth stealing. I was young. I didn't fight back. I just disappeared." He sat back, absorbing the confession like a blow to the chest. "And all this time, you've been cleaning my house. While hiding this?" Charlotte shrugged lightly. "I wasn't hiding. I just stopped believing that what I had to say mattered anymore." Benjamin rested his elbows on the table, folding his hands in front of him. He studied the woman who had worked quietly in his home for nearly a year, realizing he had never once asked what she dreamed about or what she loved. Like so many people in his world, he had become used to looking through those who served him, not at them. "You shouldn't have had to stop," he said, his tone quieter now, almost ashamed. "A voice like yours, there's a reason it stayed alive inside you all this time." Charlotte offered a small, uncertain smile. "Sometimes I think it only survived because I never fully let it go. Every so often, something I saw or heard would whisper a sentence in my mind. I'd scribble it down during breaks or on the bus ride home. But I didn't know what to do with them. They felt like fragments from a life that wasn't mine anymore." Benjamin looked down at the pages again. "These fragments are powerful. They speak of lives most publishers never think to explore, stories from the edges that deserve to be in the center. Have you ever thought about putting them together? Turning them into a collection?" "I don't think anyone would take it seriously," Charlotte said softly. "I mean, who would read stories written by a housekeeper?" "I would," Benjamin said without hesitation. "And I suspect many others would too. People are tired of the same voices, the same polished, predictable characters. They want truth. And you write with an honesty that can't be manufactured." She blinked, her hands fidgeting with the edge of a notebook. "Are you saying you'd publish me?" "I'm saying I'd help you get there," he replied. "I'll mentor you. Help you edit, shape these stories, find the best form for them. I won't hand it to you, this wouldn't be a favor. It would be a partnership, because I believe in what you're doing." Charlotte looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why would someone like you risk their reputation for someone like me?" Benjamin leaned forward, his voice low and steady. "Because someone once did it for me. My grandfather gave me a desk, a pen, and permission to speak before anyone thought I had something worth saying. He saw the spark. And I've spent my whole career chasing that same spark in others. Tonight, I found it again. In you." Silence hung between them, thick and sacred. Then slowly, Charlotte nodded. "All right. I'll try. I don't want charity, and I won't accept shortcuts. But if you'll guide me, I'll give it everything I have." And so they began. The next morning, Benjamin rearranged her schedule so that her afternoons were free for writing. He converted a sunroom off the library into a writing space, filled it with notebooks, pens, a comfortable chair, and shelves lined with fiction and non-fiction from around the world. He met with her twice a week to read and review new drafts, offering feedback that was sometimes blunt, but always fair. Charlotte approached the task with the same discipline she applied to scrubbing floors and organizing silverware, only now, her hands worked with purpose fueled by hope. She wrote about the quiet dignity of night shift workers, the secret sorrows of street vendors, the strength of women who endured unseen heartbreaks. She wrote with precision and compassion, every word placed with care. As the months passed, her confidence grew. She no longer hesitated when reading aloud. She asked sharper questions about structure and tone. She began to experiment, weaving fictionalized dialogue into her vignettes, daring to explore voice and rhythm like a composer learning to conduct an orchestra. Benjamin watched with pride, but also with a quiet awe. In helping her, something within him had healed. The cynicism that had crept into his career, the weariness of chasing market trends and bestseller lists, began to dissolve. Charlotte reminded him of why literature mattered in the first place, not because it impressed, but because it revealed. By the end of the year, they had assembled a full manuscript. The collection, titled Invisible Voices, painted a mosaic of everyday people through deeply personal, lyrical storytelling. Benjamin presented it to the editorial board of Wellington House, not as a favor, but as a project worth fighting for. When the book was published, it garnered critical acclaim. Reviewers called it a quiet revolution in narrative empathy and a triumphant debut from a voice previously unheard. Readers from all walks of life connected with the stories, because they recognized themselves in them. But it didn't stop there. Charlotte, with Benjamin's support, went on to launch a writing program at the local library. It was open to anyone, no degrees, no resumes required. All they needed was a story to tell and the courage to tell it. She taught night classes for janitors, nurses, retired bus drivers, and single mothers. Her workshops became so popular that community centers across the state began requesting her curriculum. 2 years later, she was invited to speak at a literary conference alongside bestsellers and Pulitzer winners. When asked how she became a writer, she told the story of the Midnight Kitchen, of an old book filled with forgotten anecdotes, and a publisher who had seen past uniforms and job titles to the heart of a storyteller. Benjamin sat in the audience that day, quietly wiping his glasses with the corner of his sleeve. He didn't need applause or credit. The real reward was watching someone rise into her voice and then turn back to lift others with her. Charlotte still kept Mary's anecdotes on her desk, not as a crutch, but as a reminder that stories connect us across class, across silence, across time. She believed that storytelling was not a privilege but a right. That every person, regardless of background, deserved the space to speak their truth. And in giving her that space, Benjamin had rediscovered his own reason for building a publishing empire, not to filter the world through a narrow lens, but to widen the page, and welcome every voice brave enough to step forward.